Hey folks, it's Nate. Thanks for joining me at the art table again today. This is just Nate cutting in a little bit later. This is about 2 days after I originally recorded this, and it has just come out that Will Smith has resigned from the Academy, which I think is the final nail in the coffin in the idea that this was a stunt. You don't resign your position in the most prestigious group of people in your peers over a stunt. So I think we can set that aside. That's not really what I want to talk about in this video, although I am going to address it at the beginning of what I recorded here. But I wanted to get this out of the way so it would be clear to you that that's not all we're going to be talking about, because I think at this point, the question is largely settled. Anyway, back to what I was originally going to say. There are a lot of people talking about Will Smith slapping Chris Rock at the Oscars. And if for some reason you are watching this in the distant future and you don't know which Oscars I'm talking about, well, I am referring to the Oscars of 2022, which took place on March 27th. If you're watching this sometime very close to the incident, you're probably familiar with this image, but if you are for some reason watching this in the distant future, this is Chris Rock, the comedian who was presenting an award, being slapped by Will Smith, who would later go on to win Best Actor, just like 10-15 minutes after this took place, as I recall, because Chris Rock made a joke about Will's wife. Now, what I find interesting about this is not so much the slap itself, what motivated it, or how either Chris Rock or Will Smith have reacted. I'm more interested in the public reaction to it, specifically the idea that this incident was staged. Now, based on my watching of the slap, I can see only one piece of hard evidence that this is something that Chris Rock and Will Smith worked out ahead of time. And that is the way that Will Smith delivered the slap. If you watch the slap in slow motion or just look at this freeze frame that we have on the screen here, you can see that Will Smith delivers the slap with his right hand. At the same time, he brings his left hand across his chest, and it seems to impact with his right shoulder. Why is that important? Well, that's important because that is the way actors, and specifically stage actors, are trained to deliver a punch or a slap on stage in order to produce a realistic sound effect at the moment of impact. Will Smith is a trained actor, and he probably knows at least a few stage actors, although I don't think he's ever done anything on stage himself. So it's reasonable to believe that he would be familiar with this technique for delivering a realistic looking and sounding slap on stage. But there's a problem. Will Smith was also being recorded by TV cameras, which he couldn't really anticipate the placement of. So it was possible that this stunt, if it was a stunt, would not work at all just because of the positioning of the cameras. On top of that, he didn't create a realistic slapping sound. In fact, this technique doesn't actually create a very realistic slapping sound, usually because the person's body is covered in clothes and the hit they deliver is usually to the face because that's dramatic, even though it's not terribly effective. And you would expect a hit to the face to produce a smacking sound more in line with hitting someone where they're clothed, because that's what happened. Now, at first blush, you might think, oh, well, that's what we hear in the video. In fact, if you listen to the video with its audio, which can be hard to do, most versions of it that you find now have music over it because they're meme videos, not the original video. But if you listen to those videos, you do hear a thump, but that thump is very loud, not what you expect from someone slapping their clothed arm or shoulder. In fact, it sounds much more like the mic pickup has been hit directly by a direct physical contact between Will Smith and Chris Rock, and not that the mic is picking up a distant thump. If you've heard a mic as it's tapped or rubbed across fabric, you'll realize it's much closer to that sound than something being thumped together 10, 15, maybe even 20 inches away. And once you consider these factors and add in all of the other surrounding evidence, the complete emotional breakdown that Will Smith seems to have had, the very shocked reaction Chris Rock presents, the very rough language that necessitated censoring of the American audio stream, all of these things point away from it being a stunt. But as I said before, what interests me is not so much the slap itself, it's the reaction, this fascination with the idea that this must be staged. And I think this is a very interesting case study in the way audience preconceptions affect the way they react to a story. Our culture is more and more online, for better or for worse. Photoshopping, memeing, and deepfake technology are putting a veneer of unreality over every aspect of the information we consume. We are fast reaching a point where people may not even believe things they see with their own eyes anymore, simply because they are so used to the way reality is sculpted to evoke reactions from them. Many streamers on YouTube and Twitch have agreed on one thing, and that is that their method of bringing people stories is so much more popular than older scripted narrative forms of entertainment because it brings a level of realism to the audience. Everyone knows that what they are seeing is happening in real time, at least in theory. With VTubers and digital skins and ever-improving deepfake technology, I'm not sure how much longer that good will be extended to them. But the point is, right now, people are in rebellion against the kind of emotional manipulation that is the stock and trade of a storyteller. Even now, after the slap heard round the world, there are tons of people out there who believe that Will Smith and Chris Rock were putting on a show to manipulate their emotions. So what can we do about that? What can the storyteller do when your audience is so cynical they may not even take your story seriously? The answer to that is actually very difficult because it requires the storyteller to do something that may seem counterintuitive. The storyteller has to be sincere. People are not upset at the slap heard round the world because they think it was done to make them feel a specific way. They're upset because they don't think the people who did it to entertain them. They think that the people who did it for their own benefit. They think the Oscars and Chris Rock and Will Smith are just trying to get more eyes on them to feed their need for attention, their need for ratings, their sense of self-importance, their narcissism, any number of reasons. Everyone who has proposed the staging theory has some kind of motive they attribute to the Academy, to Chris Rock, to Will Smith. And I'm 90% sure those motives would be correct if this was staged. I just don't think it was staged. The fact is, people are objecting to this because they think that the people who put on this show were attempting to get something for themselves and give nothing back to their audience. If you present yourself sincerely to your audience, if you are truly trying to tell them a story to entertain and edify them, if you are willing to meet your audience inside the circle of story and let the story be what binds you together, not reputation, not monetary transaction, not any of the other day-to-day mundanity that people come to the story circle to escape, but if you let the story itself be the thing that holds together the magic of the moment, be the thing that evokes emotion from them, and in general, do your best to remove yourself from this story so that they can put as much of themselves as they wish to into the story, that sincerity comes through in your method of storytelling. That sincerity will be reciprocated by the audience, and they will get invested. The key to understanding the cynic is to understand that it is not the stage that they object to. It is the insincerity of the storyteller. Now, that doesn't mean that this cynicism is an easy obstacle to overcome. After all, if I am correct, and what we saw transpire between Chris Rock and Will Smith was not staged, well, many people are going to believe that sincere storytelling is staged because they have just become that cynical. But if you put sincerity into your stories continually, you can wear down the cynics. You can bring them over to your side because they are not objecting to your storytelling. They are objecting to an attitude that they see all pervasive in the culture. Don't despair. It will be difficult to win these people over. And I don't think that you need to make a special effort to do it. In fact, you're more likely to drive off cynics than to win them over if they see that you are targeting them specifically. That's unfortunate. But honest, sincere storytelling for an audience that is already invested in your storytelling, that is what is going to do more to placate a cynic than actively fighting against whatever talking points they use to try and portray your storytelling as insincere or fake. Hollywood has been an insincere storyteller for a long time, and one or two instances of honest emotional moments, however ugly or silly they may prove to be, is not going to win the cynics back. It's very easy for storytellers to get distracted by critics. To some extent, that's understandable. Feedback is an important and necessary part of improving your product. However, it's also important to recognize that really cynical feedback is not going to be won over easily or by changing your methodology, unless your methodology includes a lot of self-serving storytelling. Instead, you need to focus on that sincerity, and eventually, assuming they're still paying attention to you, you can win them over. Anyway, that's all I got for you today, folks. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, you can let me know what you think down in the comments below. There's a like button and a subscribe button down there. You can use those as you see fit, and I'll talk to you later.